Yesterday, we brought you the story of how NBC News, the verification unit, teamed up with some left-wing foreign nonprofit in order to try and get the Federalists demonetized by Google. Well, anyway, this has sparked, even though it all worked out, the Federalists is not getting demonetized. And NBC actually embarrassingly looks up looking like fools for screwing and botching the story in the first place. However,
they called the manager and then they got their own story wrong.
Screwed it up.
Yeah.
The real issue, though, Krystal, is that this has sparked, I mean, something we've tracked here for a while, the biggest kind of tech-lash on the right that is yet I've really seen in a long time.
Interesting.
And so this begins kind of with Senator Josh Hawley. So he's been a leader on these issues. He introduced new legislation which would scale back Section 230 protections for tech companies with large audiences. And essentially what that means is that if you're a big tech company and your content moderation, the way that it seems to be applying to one group or not the other doesn't seem fair, then a publisher can actually sue you as long as your revenue is over $1.5 billion. Obviously, it kind of applies to Google, Facebook,
a handful
Twitter.
Of the
it's only three
top dogs.
Major companies, but it comes kind of in the heels of the Twitter fact-checking at Trump. I really think that might have been the stupidest decision by a company in the long run of anything, because it's basically inviting government regulation. And we talked here yesterday about how the Department of Justice now putting forward its own legislative package. We even have FCC commissioners who are out there saying that 230 needs to have reform. I've never seen something move kind of so quickly in over a month. The growing, I think, tech-lash makes it so that these companies can't be safe, because the establishment Dems are also weirdly against tech because of the whole Russia stuff, right? Like they blame Facebook for, erroneously in my view, for trying to swinging the 2016 election. But Facebook, Twitter, and Google spent literally billions of dollars lobbying this town right and left, and largely bought them. And now it's crumbling away.
There are concerns all around. And just to back up for people who haven't followed this, and I think our audience is pretty well informed on this issue, but Section 230 is what gives them the status as platforms rather than publishers. That means that they have legal protection from the things that are posted on their site. There are a few exceptions, but by and large, whatever gets posted, it's not Twitter's fault, it's not Facebook's fault, it's not YouTube's fault. There are these neutral platforms. And so the argument is, and this largely comes from the right, but also somewhat from the left, that, okay, well, if you're going to start going in, and in Facebook's case, they're very selective about what gets surfaced and the way the algorithms work. If you're going to be censoring people, if you're going to be in Twitter's case, and this is what you're referring to that really sparked the outcry, if you're going to be adding little editorial notes to different tweets of Donald Trump and other leaders around the world, or other individuals or pundits for that matter, then you're falling more in the line of a publisher, and you should be dealt with accordingly. Now, if you actually dealt with these companies like publishers, it would basically kill them.
Yes,
I mean, they could not survive. And so the threat of that is really just that. It's a threat, right? The right in particular, and Donald Trump specifically, and the White House and the DOJ were very upset over the handling of this tweet, and there was this backlash from the right in particular. Although, as I've discussed on this show, I think anyone with a view outside of like the neoliberal mainstream should be very uncomfortable with these actions as well, and most of all should be uncomfortable with the amount of power that these massive companies hold in our public discourse and in our country. In Facebook, these things they're almost like sovereign nations in the amount of power.
And they behave that way.
They behave that way in certain instances. So I think the best way to look at the DOJ package and the Hawley package at this point, because both have to actually pass through Congress in order to take effect. This isn't something that, it's not an executive order that the president could sign.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. But yeah.
But the point is, these are like a threat.
Yes.
They're sort of a tactic. That's, I think, the way to look at this is the administration and some of their allies are wanting to say to Twitter and Facebook, like, nice business model you got there, like, nice thing you got going, keep it up, and you're going to face some real repercussions.
Yeah, look, 4 years ago, the Republican Party and Paul Ryan were out there being like, the Republicans are the party of Uber, and the Democrats are the party of the taxi cab unions. And then a couple of years before that, Barack Obama, during his State of Union addresses, was like, we're the country of Google and Facebook. So, like, we've gone from that to this, with a number of Republican senators and the White House, the Department of Justice, basically saying we got to roll back the amount of power, or not even roll back, we need to create changes to incentivize. Because the real thing is, what we talked about, platform versus publisher, all that stuff, under the current letter of the law, they don't really care. Like, there's no actual neutrality that they have to abide by. They pretty much can do whatever they want. So what people are saying is, well, let's change the law then. Because if we're going to give this massive benefit to these tech companies, then we have to say, then you have to behave equally fair to left and to right, to everybody. And you have to give some recourse to people. I mean, this is what we said yesterday. If you take away monetization for an advertising-based business like a website, it's dead. You're going to destroy it. And so the point is that you have to be able to protect both publishers and those people who use those platforms, because they've become so big that they're vital to our national discourse. And I think at this point, in a court of law and in terms of public opinion, there's no way that they could get away with we're just a private company. If you think about it, I mean, 100 some years ago, that Standard Oil tried to make the same case on oil. And we were like, no, actually oil is very critical to the global economy, to our nation's security. So we're going to break you up and we're going to make it so that the market, having a stable oil market that's competitive is actually vital to the interests of the United States and its people. I think you could probably make the same argument around technology at this point.
Absolutely.
And so
it's like a public utility. I mean, it's essential to everyone's day-to-day lives.
Exactly.
And you see that in the digital divide. You see that in the kids who are trying to do their homework in the McDonald's parking lot because they don't have decent broadband at home. I mean, you see how central this is, and the number of people who get all of their information from these platforms. So whatever decisions they make, these micro decisions that they make, are tremendously powerful at shaping what stories get surfaced, how people interpret them, and even the way that we think about one another. I mean, for a while there was this, I think YouTube has sort of changed some of their practices, but the original algorithm basically pushed you to more and more salacious content, which is understandable because they care about is more eyeballs for more time. So if you liked this, let's up it a little bit, let's up it a little bit. And so it led to this radicalization. And that's just one example of how these tiny tweaks to an algorithm, to the way that the platform works, to what they're appending to different tweets, to their little suggestions. Twitter is doing now these little, let's try out these nagging suggestions of, hey, have you read the article? Right? Or with the curse words are you sure you want to send that? Right?
Yes.
All these little nagging things can have massive impact on what is happening in this country, how we think about what is happening in this country. So these are not small issues. I'm not sure that anyone in Congress right now is really representing the direction that I would go in, because I don't see any of the Republicans really calling for these platforms to be broken up, right? Maybe I don't know if Hawley has said something, but I mean,
he's talked about it before.
To me, the bigger problem is you do have to view them sort of as public utilities and treat them on that level, or you have to break them up, because ultimately the power that they hold is the real problem here.
Yeah, well, I just think that we're moving very much in that direction, and people need to be very aware of it.
Yeah, and Democrats are really behind the 8 ball in this. I mean, they just want to basically bully and shame Twitter and Facebook
into fact-checking
into doing the things they want them to do. That's not a solution, right? Whether you agree with the particular, take this account down or leave this one up or whatever, that is not any sort of a solution. Taking Donald Trump's Twitter account down is not any sort of a solution. You have to think more structurally about what we're going to do with these things.
That's exactly right. All right.
More Rising for you after this.